Well, you can only say that they failed to have an agreement if you were expecting an agreement. I wasn't. We are in a period of tension. Certainly it's too strong to speak about currency war, as some have did. Myself, I use this wording, but certainly too strong a word. We have tension. We need to find a way to get out of it. It's not that easy. The discussion was, I think, very fruitful, but there's no decision to be expected. More to build a consensus on how to strengthen the recovery, which is still very fragile, how to avoid to go back to another crisis. That's a discussion which are going on, not really to have a decision on something. On what? The question is, how do we work together and how we go ahead enhancing cooperation?
Do you feel that the tone was more cooperative than perhaps some of the rhetoric we were hearing heading into the meeting?
Yes, I would even say more. I was a bit worried before the meetings that the momentum for cooperation could slightly vanish. Cooperation was very strong during the crisis, at the climax of the crisis, and because there may be this feeling wrong, but there may be this feeling that the crisis is over, then everybody wants to go back to his domestic problem and forget about cooperation. So I was worried about that. And I must say that during the other meetings, the momentum came back. And the idea that we absolutely need to work together, which doesn't mean that everybody has the same view on the problem, but at least that there is no domestic solution, there must be global solution. This idea has been strengthened during the meeting. So I'm rather happy from this point of view.
Now, you're advocating that the IMF have more of a role when it comes to dealing with some of these issues, troubleshooting disputes over currency. How could that work? I mean, what can they do? You talk about a mechanism. I mean, what can the IMF really do here? Isn't it about a political decision between the countries?
It is mostly and essentially a political decision. But for the leaders to make a political decision on economic question, especially in such an interconnected world, they need to have this decision prepared. They need to have some institution having bilateral talk with the different part of it, trying to have the view converging. You know, decision and consensus doesn't appear like this overnight just because you want it. You need to want it, but it's not enough. You also need to have prepared the possibility of it, to have shown that it's a win-win process, that everybody will be better off if you work together. And that's the work that we do.
There doesn't seem to be the possibility of coming to some sort of agreement, whatever model that would take, without China being willing to do something. Some have suggested that they are clearly an economic powerhouse, a leader, but they're not taking responsibility, the leadership role that they should, by coming together and sort of doing enough on their currency. What's your sense from dealing with the Chinese? Is it a matter of degree of timing, or are we far away from them being able to sit down at a table and come to an agreement?
It's true to say that the most Chinese want to be at the center of the game, have more influence, more voting power, more say in institutions like the IMF, for instance, the more they need to be part of the solution and take responsibility for the global economy. I think this is underway. And the way the Chinese changed their economic policy during the last year, addressing the crisis and deciding to have a more a growth model more centered on domestic consumption than on export, as it was the case in the past, is a big change which will have a lot of consequences down the road. So I won't say that it's impossible to find an agreement because the interests will be so opposed. They're not opposed because they're all in the same boat.